Bryce, and welcome to the Cornellian podcast. Today we'll be talking with two students about their experience with the new Second Year Seminar, or SYS course. Could you please introduce yourselves and say what class you took?
I'm Chickadee. I use they, them pronouns, and I took Numbers and Supportive Democracy with Jim Freeman.
I'm Day, and I took Earth Sustainability with Emily. I think her last name's Walsh. I don't remember. We just called her Emily.
And what did you like about the SYS?
I really appreciated that it gave me a better sense of how voting works and the math behind it. That's a lot of what we talked about with Numbers and Supportive Democracy, was how to better analyze what we're looking at and the way that logic plays into how we interpret different articles and voting systems. It just was a really interesting course content for me.
I liked SYS in general because it was a lot more specific than last year's FYS was, which was the freshman year seminar. It was a lot more specific to your major. And with Earth Resource Sustainability, there's so much more that goes into being sustainable and going green and all those kinds of things that you don't think about. You don't necessarily think about the soil that is outside right now and like all the different processes that go into like water transferring into different aquifers and how that plays into sustainability and how we clean our water and all that other stuff. So it's really interesting to go out and see those different kinds of facilities and things like that and learn more about it and what other companies are doing to be sustainable and to be safe.
So would you guys say that this course was beneficial for you just as people or as Cornell students?
As a person, I think it was really interesting and useful information. As a Cornell student, I'm a transfer student, and I have enough credits to have transferred in as a sophomore, but those credits don't go towards either of my double majors. So I am a bit behind on the schedule, and so while it was really interesting, there might have been a course better suited for my overall plans.
For me, I thought for my SYS, it was really important for me as a person, learning about all these different things, especially with sustainability and things like that, to just learn about them. It was more beneficial to me as a person than it is for my major. I think as a Cornell student, it was also very beneficial. I personally think that most people should learn at least a little bit about sustainability, but that's also my own opinion when it comes to those things. But yeah, I feel like the SYS, it's more beneficial as a person rather than for your major or anything like that.
So now that we've talked a bit about what you like about the SYS, what did you dislike about it?
I do have concerns about my schedule and whatnot, but I was also going into the class willing to participate and set that aside. But because it is required, I feel like a lot of my classmates felt like they had to be there when they didn't want to be. And that added to a general disinterest in the classroom. And some of us were engaged, and that helped kind of balance that out. But there was definitely some disconnect in attention and motivation in being there. And I think that affected the overall experience in a negative way.
For me, I liked my class. I didn't really have anything that I disliked about it. But talking to other people, the way that these classes were first framed kind of threw some people off. I know I had friends who were in the geology major who took the psychology portion of Earth Sustainability rather than the geo version, and the only differentiating between the two is if you would look at whether it was Sci or Geo. They had the same title, same name, and so it was really confusing during the picking portions for them to get in the right one. So a lot of them were like, oh my god, I wish I was in that one, or something like that. I feel like they do a better job and they get more people actually interested in those classes if they lay out ahead of time what actually is in the class. Because if you looked at the portfolio for both the psych and the earth or then the geo version, they had the same writing, the same like layout and everything. So if they could be a bit more specific about what was actually in this class, what you were actually going to do, I feel like that'd be a lot more beneficial.
And kind of going off of that, what besides that would you want to see changed for the SYS next year, assuming that they continue this?
I think for field trips and things like that, a lot of our field trips, I don't know whether it was because we were kind of in and out of the classroom, at least my classroom was, for COVID and things like that, it felt like a lot of our field trips, our presentations where we had guest speakers and come in, all of it was a bit rushed last minute. It didn't really feel put together, and it didn't quite flow with our coursework quite as well. But again, I think it's just because we were in and out of the classroom and weird timing with COVID and stuff like that. But if that could be improved upon, I think that would work a lot better.
I think a lot of what I witnessed was the fact that SYS is relatively new. I don't know if this was the first or second year that they were doing them, but I know it's pretty new. And so there were moments when Jim would be like, we're gonna do this thing and see what happens. Hopefully it's useful, and I think this will work well for what we're studying later in the week. Hopefully you agree with me when we get later in the week. And just because the concept of them is new, teachers don't know exactly how to make it work yet, and it's kind of in its experimental phase, which is going to happen when you have a new course regardless. So, I mean, I guess really just doing it more will help with that, but it was a little funky sometimes.
If you could add an SYS course to the roster, what would you want it to cover? Because we had a wide range of topics. Is there anything that you want more specific, or do you think that something was overlooked?
Me specifically, I would love an archaeology one. That is my major, and there was not one available. There was not an archaeology SYS. There was an anthro one, but it covered more. It didn't cover quite what I was looking for, so that's why I'd rather went with the geo route. But an archaeology one would be great. I think that would be very interesting, especially if one of the presentations is something you were able to talk with somebody who ran a dig site or something like that. You could also talk about prospecting and different kinds of things like that. I feel like that would have been like really beneficial, especially to me and my fellow archaeology majors. There's not a lot of us, but we're here. We want our class.
I think it would be interesting for non-archaeology majors just to have a moment where they could dip their toes in and then go back to whatever they were doing.
Because for archaeology, it's a lot about, you learn about the culture and also the history that correlates with it. And there's also the geology aspect. So you're dipping your toes into 3 things at once. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I know I definitely took a SYS that was outside of my major, and I really enjoyed it. So I feel like that could be very fun for anyone to take.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember what any of the options were other than the ones that my friends took that I've talked to since I got here. I don't remember looking at the list. I have no idea what the options were. But I don't remember seeing an education one, and as an education major, I think I probably would have noticed that if there had been one. And I had a lot of fun in my math one because that's my other major, but I think it would have been interesting to have an education one, and then also people who are still not entirely sure what they want to do if they were considering education. Now is the time to already have decided that because of how many classes we have to take. And so if somebody was still not sure at the beginning of sophomore year, that would be a good time to have an SYS to dip their toes in some more, get a feel for it, make a decision.
So regarding all of the little hiccups around it, how did you feel about the showcase that happened at the end of the block?
I feel like it probably could have run a little bit better.
I feel like we didn't really know what was happening. We were just told pick a slot to be on the OC, talk about it. My partner and I didn't make a presentation because we were told we could make whatever format we wanted to consolidate the information from our research. So we could write a paper, make a PowerPoint, posters, whatever we wanted to do. And so by the end of it, we had a bunch of graphs and spreadsheets and knew how to explain what we were looking at. But we didn't have a presentation or anything. We didn't have a paper. And so when we were on the OC, we were kind of just like, look at our cool graphs. And we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And then once we were there, it was like people coming and going. So if I'm in the middle of telling you how I redid the math for the Electoral College and then somebody else walks up, now I have to figure out how to get both of you on the same page without just starting over and boring the first person. And I don't know. It was just kind of weird.
Yeah, I feel like that's also something that teachers could do too. I know my teacher, for what she did, we actually had a presentation in class before our actual presentation out there. And she told us to basically make 2 different presentations. You have your 10-minute long presentation in class where you present everything that you know. And then on the OC, you have to be ready for firing questions because people are just going to ask you random questions about what's going on in your poster. You have to be ready to fire and answer what you know. So, and in those instances, that's when you relay your information. We also made a poster because this was probably want to be one of the easiest ways that we can get people to learn about your topic. And we talked about like poster design and things like that, because we came at it also as a scientific poster thing. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of, oh, you're the scientist presenting this thing. So you have to have your poster and you have to be ready for someone to be like, well, what's this mean? And just kind of be ready to fire and just go. And your poster has to look nice and presentable to where people can follow it and it flows very easily. So yeah, I think that's another thing. Because I feel like what your professor did would have been really interesting, especially presentation-wise, if he told you that, you guys, oh yeah, you're going to have to present those informations. Because then you could have your interesting graphs and everything, and you could have like little text bubbles next to it explaining what the hell was going on. You know?
Yeah, I definitely, like, because I went around after my presentation slot, and, like, I saw some of the stuff that your class was doing, and there were definitely, like, well-organized posters that I could read and follow. Not gonna lie, I was kind of distracted that day. I didn't want to read all those words and look at those posters. If I'd been invested in the moment, that was definitely a good way to go. And everyone in your class seemed confident with their presentation because they were prepared for that. Whereas my class and some of the other classes, we were just kind of like, we're here, I guess? I don't know what's happening. And you could definitely tell.
Yeah, I feel like if that's one thing to change is definitely let the professors know to tell their students that, hey, you're going to be presenting this information on the OC. Pick a format that you think will work very well with presenting this information.
I think that's the thing, is Jim also didn't really know what was happening.
Yeah.
So he couldn't tell us what he didn't know.
Very true. And for the last question, I want to ask you guys, do you think the SYS should continue to be offered at Cornell? Do you think it should continue to be a requirement moving forward?
I think it'd be a good requirement, but I think it shouldn't just be first block, especially for scheduling issues and things like that. I feel like it would be way more beneficial if they were able to offer it blocks 1, 3, blocks 1, 3, 5, kind of space it out a little bit. So that way those who do transfer in and you feel like you're behind that first block, instead of taking SYS first, you could move your schedule around and take something that you desperately need for your major. I feel like that'd work a little bit better, and it'd kind of be a bit more beneficial. It'd be nicer to transfer students, and it'd be easier to work around your schedule if there are certain things that you need for your major in order to graduate. But I think SYS is an important class, not only for personal exploration. It could be beneficial to your major, but also I think it can make you a better person if you truly try. I think most education does, but especially this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it does add value on that personal level, but I think the issue is that because it's framed as this requirement that doesn't go towards your major, a lot of people are maybe not outwardly hostile about it, but they're a little bit resentful that they have to be taking this instead of something that goes towards their major, or even another class that they think would be more fun, even if they don't have a major requirement to fill that block. And so I think they would be interesting to have offered still, because they are good interdisciplinary courses that are useful, but I don't know that them being required is as beneficial as it might do more harm than good. I'm not really sure where that balance lies. But then if it's not required, who's actually going to take it and then get the benefits that exist? I don't know.
Thank you both for joining us, and if you want to listen read more from the Cornellian, check us out at our website or look us up on Google. Do you have anything else you guys would like to say?
No, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was fun.